Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the natal chart in astrologers and what to look for as far as indicators in a natal chart where one could be perhaps proficient in astrology and give a strong propensity toward this subject and be very good at it. And anyway, first thing I want to get at, I think there may be a misconception about indicators in a natal chart and being a good astrologer. Now, I saw a part of a video recently by John Paul DeCoco, and he had something on there about Uranus and astrology, and it gives like this impression that that's really like you got to really just look at that and if it's well placed and aspected or what have you, and that's what makes the good astrologer. But I'm not saying that doesn't, but there are a number of other indicators in a chart besides Uranus as far as what could be good indicators for an astrologer. And for one thing, even just looking at the signs. Now, somebody has Scorpio prominent in a chart. Say if it's the sun, moon, or ascendant, a stellium in Scorpio, even Scorpio on the 8th house cusp. This could, right there, that could be somebody that could have a strong aptitude for this subject. Now, renowned astrologer Liz Green, she has Scorpio rising almost at 29 degrees, which represents, at least in my opinion, the full culmination of the sign. Prolific astrologer Alan Oken, he has Scorpio ascendant as well. There's a YouTube astrologer that does videos, and her ascendant is Scorpio. And even a Pisces as well. Pisces can have an inclination for the metaphysical. It is ruled by Neptune associated with the metaphysical. So, I mean, you take two people come to mind, Crystal Lynn, who has Pisces rising, and also renowned astrologer Alyssa Sharp, who has a Pisces ascendant as well. And also, I mean, you look, so Pisces ascendant, Pisces moon, a sun in Pisces, even Pisces on the midheaven. These could be indicators for one could be very good at the subject of astrology and thus make a good astrologer. Now, as far as Aquarius goes, Aquarius as well, because it is ruled not just by Saturn, but by Uranus as well. And Uranus, okay, that governs astrology. Aquarius, sun, moon, or ascendant, stellium in Aquarius. Even Aquarius on the 6th house cusp. Even the other two signs I talked about before on the 2nd house cusp, the 10th house cusp, the houses that are associated with money and work, the 2nd, 6th, and 10th. So, also, keep in mind you could look at Pluto as well, because Pluto governs the occult and occult studies, which doesn't, at least in my opinion, does not exclude the subject of astrology. Pluto well aspected, you could have, say, Pluto in the 6th house in one of the work houses. You could have it in the 10th house. And Pluto in the 2nd house. These could be some examples as well. I think when you look at this too, it's not just about, the planets, okay, Neptune is another indicator. You could have Neptune well aspected. I have Neptune in the 7th house, and that could be an indicator for somebody that could be a good public speaker on astrology. So in the metaphysical or what have you, metaphysical astrology. So, and another thing too is you could also look at house rulers. Now, the 8th house is associated with astrology. I have the ruler of the 8th house in the 6th house of work. I incorporate astrology into my daily routine, of course, because I'm consistently doing these astrology videos on a daily basis. The ruler of the 6th house in the 8th could be good for somebody that wants to do work in association with astrology. And also the ruler of the 10th and the 8th, the ruler of the 8th house in the 10th house of career. If you have the ruler of the 8th house in the 2nd house of money, that could be another good indicator. And also, don't forget the 12th house as well, because the 12th house is associated with Pisces and the metaphysical. If you have, say, a strong 12th house, if you have a stellium in the 12th house, I mean, those are some good indicators. The ruler of the 12th in the 6th house of work, that could be another indicator. Your ruler of your 6th house of work in the 12th house of the metaphysical, that could be another indicator for this. Let's say you even have the same sign on the 12th house as you do in the 1st house. Well, this could be an indicator as well, because it could show an integration of merging with the metaphysical and yourself and your outer demeanor. Another indicator too is, keep in mind, the 8th house being associated with astrology. You could have the ruler of the 8th house in the 1st house. That could indicate that astrology could be prominent in your life scheme. Or you could even have the ruler of the 1st house in the 8th house. Could be another thing for this, as far as an indicator to have a strong aptitude for the subject of astrology. A thing too is you could have Scorpio on the midheaven. This could be another example. Pluto in the 10th or conjunct the 10th house. That could be another one. You have a strong Pisces stellium, could be an indicator on this. You look at as far, and also what helps in a natal chart too. You don't necessarily just, it's not even just your natal chart, your positions at the time you're born. You could have your progressed ascendant go into Scorpio, your progressed 8th house cusp go into Scorpio, the 6th house cusp in Scorpio, the same with the 10th or the 2nd, and even those houses making progressions into Pisces or even Aquarius. Those could be beneficial too, as far as perhaps doing something strong associated with the subject of astrology. And also to look at transits as well. If you say, let's say you have a transiting Neptune hitting your 6th house, or Pluto, or even Uranus, which of course is associated with astrology, those could be indicators as well, maybe picking up the interest in astrology, which you may not have had before. Or those transits, say they're hitting a 10th house or the 2nd house. 10th house being career, and also 2nd house being money, income generated. So there's a number of things to look at. And I mean, keep in mind too that even if you don't, you look at your chart and you don't see anything as far as indicators for doing astrology, genetics can play a role as well. If you've had a family that does that, or a number of people in your family had a profound interest in the subject, you may have that as well. And if it's something you love, I say by all means go for it. Whether you have indicators or not, generally, if you have an infatuation and enthusiasm for something, you're generally going to be very adept and adroit at it. Now, in my own chart, I have some indicators I told you about before. I have Neptune in the 7th house, and Neptune in the 7th could be somebody that could be a good public speaker on the subject of astrology. I have Aquarius on my 10th house cusp, and it's at 1 degree. 0 to 1 degrees in the chart could indicate what one has started could finish. It's kind of like once the astrologer, always the astrologer. It's symbolic of beginnings, and being in a fixed sign, especially a beginning that does not end. So I think that's very telling for me. I also have that one of the rulers of Aquarius, Uranus, is conjunct my 6th house cusp in the 6th house. So, and also I could speak well and eloquently about the subject. I do have Uranus is also part of a long grand air trine configuration that also includes my moon in Gemini in the first house, and of course the Aquarius MC or midheaven. So those are really some things to look at. And if you have indicators in your chart that could show that you could be adept at the subject of astrology, and also if you have Mercury well placed and well aspected, well, that would actually help you communicate about the subject very well. Even say if you had the ruler of the third house in the 8th house of astrology, this could show that you could be very communicative about this subject. Gemini on the cusp of the 8th house could be similar. You could show where you could be very communicative and really be articulate as far as the subject of astrology goes. Virgo on the cusp of the 8th house could be somebody that could be very analytical about the subject of astrology. So those are some things to look at, people, as far as astrology goes. I have a friend that has Neptune in the first house. I think it may conjunct her first house cusp. Neptune is the metaphysical, and being that that it's in Capricorn, she might really do well in terms of not just being proficient in the subject of astrology, but also perhaps in business related to that as well. Strong business element, I think, would be in that mix as well. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for the natal chart and astrologers and being good at astrology. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.